Made it, guys. This is it. I am the last, well, there's probably closing comments, but we made it basically to the end. I am going to keep to my time because I know that we're a little bit behind. But I was sitting out there and I was thinking to myself, how amazing all this stuff is. I mean, this is not my world, right? I run businesses. I'm new to running a technology company in a lot of ways. And it blows me away how all of these devices do so much and do it so well. And we're really just at the beginning of kind of integrating everything into one and making life easier. And why I think it is particularly interesting is that the product that we have is actually the complete opposite of that, right? This product is a single-use, single-purpose product. Our goal is to create something that only does one thing, to only solve one problem, and I think we do it better than anyone in human history has done, which is amazing, right? But the first question is, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? And I think it's important to the overall discussion to think about it. Now, we're gonna cover some ground here. I am gonna talk about my criminal proclivities a little bit, right? And I encourage you guys throughout this presentation to try and think of yourself as bad guys, right? Because I do think it helps kind of frame what we're doing here. But so mobile phones. I think this statement probably undersells it a little bit. If I'm really honest, my mobile phone is like my friend, my buddy. It's what I would imagine an addiction to be like, right? If I don't have coffee, I have a headache, it's terrible. If I don't have my mobile phone for 15 minutes, I think like my life is over. My wife constantly thinks that I forget things, but I never lose my mobile phone because the idea of not having it in my hand for 5 to 10 minutes is beyond what I could imagine. I actually looked, you guys might be surprised to hear this, I have a hard time sleeping. And so when I go to bed, I actually listen to either shows or try to learn stuff. And I was looking at my cell phone usage. I use my cell phone for an average of 13 hours a day. 13 hours. Right? And by the way, I do work. So that's basically every waking hour when I'm not at my computer, not using my cell phone. And it knows everything about me. And it has been an amazing enabler for us, right? We all know that. That's pretty clear. But what has changed, and I think what is fundamentally different today, is that there's no safety left. There's no safety left either in your mobile phone or in hiding in plain sight. And what do I mean by that? A couple years ago, if you were to think about it, right, people used to be concerned about the NSA, right? They could listen into our calls, and you could be comfortable in kind of thinking to yourself, well, you know, the NSA doesn't really care about me, and the US government is not writ large a bad actor, right? But that's not where technology is today. And Pegasus is the beginning of that transition, not the end. And what's the transition? The transition is a really natural transition, which is from something that just the government had to something that is now available to everyone. It is not hard to get into your phone. It used to be governments that can do it. I can do it. You guys can do it. It costs $50,000 today to get into your phone. $50,000. Okay? Let's think about being a criminal for a minute. Okay? And I'm going to digress a little bit and then go through. I was telling someone during lunch, I don't know if you guys saw, but Chairman Powell, okay? He got a phone call from 2 people yesterday. You guys can Google this on your phones while I'm here. And not yesterday, it came out yesterday. He got a call from a couple people 2 months ago pretending to be Zelensky, okay? He got on the phone with them, told them about the next 2 rate hikes, and where he thought the US economy was going to be, including when it was going to be in a recession. Okay? Now imagine he has Pegasus on his phone. There's no footprints to this. If Pegasus is on your phone, the only way you know it's on your phone, I don't know, you guys probably know this even better than me, the level of footprints that you have to track is intense, right? And I want to give you guys an example. So Frontline, which is like a kind of, budget version of 60 Minutes, all right? They did it's true, right? Who actually watches Frontline? Nobody. Anyway, but they did a 2-part series on Pegasus. And so I want to play a video. This woman is from Kazakhstan, okay? And she is just a normal protester against the government, right? Not a very well-known one, just a kind of low-level person who protests against the government.
So we have about 1,000 number from Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan.
And you're among them.
Oh,
And then we also have some people who are your friends.
okay. And what does that program do?
So what the program does is, it basically, without you knowing, it installs things on your phone, and then it allows.
Even if I didn't click on anything?
Yes. So the secrecy of this, it's called Pegasus. Mm-hmm. And the secrecy of it is that you don't actually see, or you don't do anything. So before you had to click on something to be infected. In this case, it all happens in the background, and you have no idea that you're infected. And when you're infected, it's transmitting your messages, your images, everything that's happened on your phone, including on Signal, because they have the phone itself.
So we are all in the wrong business, right? Are we not? Why do we not move somewhere, buy Pegasus, and think about each of your companies? Let's use IBM, right? Do you know how many people at IBM you could get their phones for? Send them a text message right before earnings that they don't have to click on and make infinite free money. The Gap's newest designs, they want to keep away from counterfeiters. Do you know how many people at the Gap have that information? You could send a text to their phone. I mean, I really think, and I think about this more often than I should, right? 1800s, I don't know how you got caught as a criminal, right? You'd have to be an idiot to get caught as a criminal. 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I feel like almost certain you get caught. With this, I don't know how you get caught with this. It is literally a way to make infinite free money at the expense of all of us, right? And it is no longer just in government hands. So there's a lot of these, right? We'll go through a couple and then we'll talk about what the solution is. But this is unbelievable, right? By the way, this is, Shakira and the guy that she, fell out with. I don't know if you guys follow the gossip stuff, but he was a part of this scam, which has not really ingratiated him to everyone. But a Spanish league put an app out that you would download to kind of follow your favorite team, and they took all of the information, text messages and otherwise, off their fans' phones. This to me is actually the future, okay? You go across the border in China and malware is put on your phone, right? I want you guys to understand, every executive that you guys are sending to some of these places, they are walking in there and the phone is compromised, immediately compromised. This is amazing. I mentioned this yesterday. This is the second scariest thing. The next slide scares me even more. This is the second scariest thing. You can't plug your phone in anywhere. This is common now. And they are taking your data. And I am going to use the word AI, okay, which is you can't hide in the masses anymore because it is very, very easy for people to pinpoint you and your industry in the masses. This is not the right quote. for this, and I will get it for you guys. But what he actually says, what Chris Ray says here, is he basically says that what is happening in China is they're looking at everything from startups to multi-billion-dollar companies in every industry across the board, okay? And they are sending people to get this information. It's not just China. China is not the only boogeyman here, right? And by the way, you can even cover yourself. If you want a veneer of kindness, you know what you can do? You guys should try this, okay? I will admit, I have done this, okay? I have. I'm not afraid. I'm a little afraid, but I have done it. And you guys can call up any of these investigative firms. Pick a firm, right? Search global investigative firm. And you can say to them, I want information on person X. And they'll say, okay, how much do you want to pay, right? And anytime you're talking to someone about $150,000 plus now, right? They will go away, give you plausible deniability, and they will be able to come back with this information, okay? That is the world that we live in. It is the reality of the world that we live in. Now, it's also okay, right? It doesn't mean that we shouldn't use our devices. It doesn't mean that this interconnectivity and everything here isn't great. It is. It is great. And what we have done and what we are trying to do is come up with a solution that is for those conversations where you don't want stuff taken. Because most of the time, who cares, right? Who cares? Most of the time, nobody cares. But now when you're having conversations, you need some place and some way to talk privately. It used to be the opposite, right? It used to be everything we did was private, and then we got online and we're like, this is amazing, we're connected to everybody. Now it's the opposite. We're constantly connected, and we need a little bit of space in order to have privacy. What does that mean? This is an important slide. There's 2 or 3 slides in here that I think are really important to focus on. This is what actually makes the phone secure. You need 3 things to have a secure phone. One is the applications that you use. Signal and WhatsApp are excellent for that, okay? There's nothing new under the sun with that. If you are on Signal and you send a message to someone else on Signal, the movement of that message from one phone to the other is very, very, very hard, if not impossible, to intercept and decrypt, okay? That is reasonably safe. People think that's enough. It's not. Everything that we've been talking about here today, all of these infiltrations into your phone are happening at layer 2, which is the operating system, right? And you saw the woman, and she was talking about Signal. And she's like, oh my God, how'd they get on Signal? Well, if you get into the operating system, you can see the person's phone just like you guys are looking at your phone. And you can watch exactly what they're doing and who they're talking to. That is really the level that we protect in a very, very unique way. And then you have the hardware, all right? Now, we talked a little bit yesterday, and I'll talk for a minute about the Green Hills and Integrity 178. But in that special coding language that's higher than top secret, we actually purchase all of the underlying code, and it is rewritten in the Integrity 178 software, which means that if you were to take our phone and put a bug in it or put a device in it, it will not even recognize that it's there, right? Unless that device happens to be written in Integrity 178 operating code, it won't even give it power. Now, that's for the top part of the triangle for security, but that's really the level that we're talking about. So these are the 3 levels, right? The applications, the operating, and the processor. This is the secret sauce, right? There are 2 pieces here that are the secret sauce for what we do. The Green Hills operating system, and this is, I tell people this all the time. You don't have to rely on me or Sotera, who's been around for 5 years. What you're relying on is very simple. It is the operating system that has been used to protect the US nuclear codes, our ICBMs, our bombers, and every plane that you guys are on. This is the operating system. And 20 years, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, people have tried to hack this operating system and they haven't been successful. So what is our secret sauce? Two things. One, we have the exclusive right to use it in a mobile phone. Super simple, right? The second is a lot of elbow grease in terms of actually taking every driver in the phone and getting it rewritten in this code and specially constructed to be a part of the phone system that we have. MetTel and our partnership with MetTel is so important because all of you guys at your core, you trust your phone services and communications to MetTel, rightfully so, right? In this new age, at some point, I think it should be today, but at some point, you guys are gonna each realize that having this option to talk and text securely is an important part of your business. Not every day, maybe not every week, but certainly to have. And as part of what they're doing, you can just call them up and say, we need this, right? I'll tell you, interesting story. I won't tell you who it was from, but we have a worldwide company, a $20 billion company that called us 2 weeks ago. And they're like, oh my God, we need 5 phones, we need them now. We're like, oh my, of course, but what's going on? The government of Bolivia, they have assets in Bolivia, started harassing and trying to basically threaten with arrest a number of their executives. They know the government of Bolivia is listening to the phone calls. They couldn't even have conversations with their people on the ground to be able to ascertain whether they were safe and how to move them, right? We got them the phones. Company is thrilled. They're putting one in every office that they have around the world. That's an extreme example, right? There are tons of other examples. Think back to the POW. Think in each of your businesses, right? What conversations are your people having where if the other side is using investigators that could compromise or otherwise harm your business and weigh it against what we have? Now, I didn't even mean to go forward to this slide. I have been thinking a lot about Eric O'Neill. Do you remember the guy who started this conference off, right? And he caught this guy, and now this guy, I mean, he's got the whitest teeth of anyone I've ever seen, right? He's an amazing presenter who lives off that story. And I will tell you, from my perspective, okay, I don't think he would have been able to catch the guy. I think Hansen gets away if he uses our phone, right? And here's why. Here's the other really interesting piece about our phone, and then we'll talk about how we prove it, is that we have like a Mission Impossible style meltdown of the phone, okay? So if somebody tries to put a password in, 5 times, 10 times, you can choose, and they mess it up, right? It literally permanently deletes everything on the phone. And you guys gotta understand, there is no data even at rest on this phone. There is no time at which the data is unencrypted. And part of the beauty of the system is neither Green Hills, nor the US government, nor us ever can see the unencrypted version of any message. So when it is gone, it is gone. If you lose the phone, you call us. You say, I lost the phone. We wipe the phone instantaneously and send you another one, right? And so I think Hansen gets away with it today. I really do. Okay, how do we prove it? So I mentioned to some of you guys that were here yesterday, and then I'm gonna finish up quickly here, that our phone was tested by US Special Forces and is being used currently in Ukraine. That's all fine and good, except I can't prove that to you because they won't give us any of the results of the test for obvious reasons. So what we did is we went out, and the person who does the penetration testing for the DoD, there are a couple groups that do it, Netrogard is one of them, and we decided to get a penetration test done that we could share with people so that they could be comfortable. We got this test done, and we made a decision. Normally when you do penetration tests, what you do is you try and kind of set it up, right? So if I wanted to prove that I could walk down the street on my block safely, I would tell the penetration tester, okay, I need you to assume that it's the middle of the day, that it's sunny, that there's nobody on the street, that I have guards on both sides, and if all those things are true, I'm gonna make it to the end of the street safely, right? We took the opposite approach. That middle part is the claim that we gave them, okay? We took the widest possible approach you can imagine. The voice, streams, and text messages between two Sotera phones cannot be intercepted and decrypted by a third party, period. Everything else around there are additive, not conditional, that we had them test so that people could feel comfortable with it. It came back very clean. All of you guys can see it. We're happy to provide it to people, but this phone is not hackable. I will also tell you, Brazil, Honduras, Spain, the UK, all of these governments have had our phone, have tried to hack it, and have been unable to. And we are very happy to provide it to anyone if they want to test it. So there are a bunch of use cases, but I think given the time, it doesn't make sense. What I would encourage you guys each to think about is for your respective businesses, what are those conversations that are being had or the information being had that could harm them from a competitive basis or otherwise, right? And this solution, it looks just like any other phone. You take it out of a box. It has MetTel's single SIM in it, which is astonishingly good. You take it out of the box, you turn it on, and you start using it, and you use it anywhere in the world. It is really that simple. So with that, let me pause, or end rather. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we can start drinking or rodeoing. I really want to see you in chaps, so that'll be fun. Any questions? Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, I thought he was being nice too. He was just waiting for the mic. It was not actually nice.
No, not at all.
You were nice. He was not. Yeah.
Sorry. Have you had clients that have had this phone taken off them or something of that nature when they've tried to enter a country like China, which is, expecting to be able to access people's devices?
Yeah, it's a great question. No, we have not. We are prepared for that eventuality. We have never had that eventuality happen. And one of the things that is interesting about the phone is it presents just like a normal phone, right? And what we like about it is the MetTel single SIM is the best option, but it's a dual SIM connectivity, and it's completely agnostic. So if you go to China without a SIM, and you put a local Chinese company SIM in, you are just as protected as if you're using a MetTel SIM, right? Because the only thing the SIM is doing is giving us the ability to move the data. The data is encrypted the entire way through and at rest. And so what we have had people do in places where they are uncomfortable is they will go without a SIM, buy a local SIM, and put it in, and that way feel okay. But it's a good question. Not yet.
He asked my question. Not yet.
That would be amazing.
So you mentioned your secret sauce is being able to, you're the only mobile phone provider able to use that operating system. Is there a term associated with that agreement?
There is a term associated with the agreement. We have rights of extension on that term, but there is a term associated with it. Critically, that term is for the creation of new phones, right? It is not, there is no point at which the phones that we have purchased and are in service will not have access to the system. Yeah, but that's a good question. Imagine you buy it and like a year later we're like, sorry. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead.
The U.S. government, why do they allow for this to, be used for private? It just seems like, they're always, this is now something that they cannot get into, right? I mean, I realize that we say, hey, all these other countries spy, but the U.S. does too at some level. And so they're allowing for this to be used in a way that kind of puts them, at a disadvantage.
It's a great, and I will tell you, one of the questions that we get the most consistently from people is, does the U.S. government have a backdoor, right? For exactly that reason. So there are two answers to your question. The first is, Green Hills is a private company, and they do have rights in their agreement with the government to give it to certain private parties, right? We cleared that hurdle. How and when they negotiated it, we don't have a huge amount of visibility into. But suffice to say, we've been in contact with the US government, and part of the process of getting this license was dealing with them. The not having a back end is an interesting question, right? And we've talked to the US government and Green Hills about it, and the answer I find incredible, right? Which is there is no back end, and proving a negative is very hard, right? Why is there no back end? The answer as to why there's no back end is because a back end to this system can be opened by anybody, right? Think about this 21-year-old kid who got rid of our secrets. If there was a back end, if anyone at Green Hills could see unencrypted messages or data, if they created any back end, it could be exploited. And so much of our critical infrastructure is running on this that it is simply not reasonable or rational for them to create it. And they are very, very focused on ensuring that none exists, which makes all the sense in the world, but I didn't think about it intuitively.
Just real quick.
Sure.
So is it any person who has a Sotera phone can talk to any other Sotera person, or is it I ordered 10 devices and it's just only those 10 can talk to each other?
Totally up to you. Totally up to you. We can set it up however you want. We can set it up however you want. I think the grand idea, if Gary Cohn were up here, what he would say is he thinks that ultimately the Sotera yellow pages, right, if you will, that when he wants to talk to someone on the Goldman board, he wants to know whether that person has a Sotera phone and what the number is, right? But the short answer to it is we set it up however people want. It can just be internal within your group, or available for anyone. But if the question you were asking is, can you call me? Anytime. Anytime on any phone. Yes, sir.
So what do you do for like the checks and balances of who uses this device, right? Like it could be used for nefarious reasons. How do we prevent this from getting into the hands of somebody that could do harm?
Yep. No, it's a great question. It's a great question. So we have a very rigorous KYC process that we go through that is about as rigorous as banks. But we also, one of those investigators that I told you about doing something nefarious, we have two different groups that are working for us, and they do good work on that. So before we bring any client on, we both do KYC and we do investigation into those people to make sure that the phones do not fall into the wrong hands, right? So for example, LLCs don't work, right? Unless we know who, unnamed LLCs, right? IBM obviously works through a corporate structure, but unnamed LLCs don't work. We will not take Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any other type of transaction that can't be traced because these phones, interestingly, they give off no ad exhaust. And because of the nature of them, we cannot there is no lawful intercept, right? So if somebody is using it nefariously, and if a court says, we want to listen in, there's no way for that to happen, right? And so one, KYC and investigation. Two, the initial reason why we had the remote wipe was because it was a requirement for that. So if a government that is in the allied bloc comes to us and says, this person is a criminal, we will turn off the phone, right? And so it is, as much as we kid around, the last thing in the world anyone wants to do is end up in jail here, right? Our goal at the end of the day is to be the good guys that are doing this. But it's a great question. We spent a lot of time on that. I spent a lot of time with the RIM and BlackBerry guys who had that, the first secure enterprise server way back in the day. And these questions, both about the backdoor and about what if bad guys get it, have been the same since that time. And the good part about that is that there are methods that have worked so far, worked well enough to make sure that it can't be used en masse that way. But it's a good question. Yeah, exactly. I didn't want to say it that way. Whoever it was that took the peyote last night is definitely out. Yes, sir.
Is there any fear of SIM triangulation So if you go to a strange country, you put this different SIM card in there, you can still be triangulated and locate where you are. And how do you handle not identifying the phone? Isn't the IEMI transmitted as well that kind of identifies what the phone is?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the phone does not obfuscate your location, right? And that is something that we are very clear about. You can, in that sense, hide in plain sight in that it looks like any other phone on that network. It doesn't give off ad exhaust, but yes, the location is not private for someone who looked hard enough for it. Now, from a US government purpose, I'm just thinking of a careful way to say it. They have networks that are out there that the phone runs on that make it invisible, effectively. But it is for the commercial user, if somebody wanted to know where you were, it is possible for them to figure that out. Thank you guys so much. We're like the warriors that made it all the way to the end. Thank you guys.